Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by Steve Grumbine of Real Progressives. By the way, because I am resistant to technological change, that's why the literal green screen is behind Steve. He offered to make it prettier, but we'd have to use a different program, and I don't know how to do that. So anyway, you know, glad you're doing well in these trying times. I thought it would be good for us to talk. We've spoken a few times because during all the debates, we've spent, I don't know, 10 Democratic debates. Maybe 20% of the time has been talking about how you're going to pay for X, Y, and Z. And then in the last 5 days, we've all of a sudden found the capacity to pump trillions of dollars into the economy basically within 48 hours. And I haven't heard how you're going to pay for any of it. Not that we should be thinking about that right now in a health pandemic, but lends some credence to modern monetary theory of this is all phantom. We have the money. It's really just we choose not to spend it.
Well, so we neither have nor don't have the money. That's the thing. Money is created every time government spends. Every time it spends, not sometimes, every time. So you see Biden up there talking about how we're going to pay for it. And he's even now, even in this moment, he and Schumer and the others are acting like, how the hell are we going to pay for this? And I had three or four different solutions to how to deal with pandemic crisis spending, because the economy is collapsing, and it's collapsing because there's zero production, there's zero commerce, there's zero activity. People are all at home. We're all stuck in our houses. The global economy is coming to a screeching halt. And so without an infusion of not just cash, because cash, while that seems sexy, and we've talked about this before, cash is an immediate, like right here, right now, we got to keep the prime of the pump going. Okay. But long term, not even long term, right now, we could literally, government could stop short and say, no mortgage payments. Mortgages are canceled for the next 6 months period. We'll cover the 6 months. We'll directly spend on everyone's mortgage. Mortgage companies send us your bills. No problem. Sent, done. They could literally cancel student debt immediately, wipe it out, just literally right here, right now, and take that burden off people. Because like my bill came in, it's like $800 this month. I don't have it. You know what I mean? And so you look around at regular people that are just trying to get their bills paid. They could easily say, hey, electric company, no problem, send us your bills, we'll cover those too. So this idea of sending just a basic income out, which I know is the sexy populist nonsense, but that in and of itself is not really the answer here. It never has been. Because you look at all the stores, you go to Walmart, go to shitty old Walmart, walk down the toilet paper aisle, and it's completely bare, empty, zero. You could have $1 million and you can't buy a roll of toilet paper because there aren't any. There's no production to meet the basic income, right? So without the production, basic income's nothing. And that's how you get Weimar, all the nonsense you hear from people talking about, well, what about Zimbabwe? And what about Weimar Republic and hyperinflation? This is what they're talking about. Because again, I think I told you this last time, in Zimbabwe, they gave away the farms to the warriors and the indigenous folks who didn't have a farming background, took it away from the colonizers that did. Good for them in that sense, bad for them in the sense that they lost about 60% of the productive capacity. So you could have had $1 bazillion, brought them all in there, and it wouldn't have bought you anything because there's nothing to buy.
So basically, if I get a check, the Republicans are talking about a one-time $1,200 check. Bernie talking about $2,000 per month, more if you have kids. If I get that check, I'm still going to Duane Reade, and there's no toilet paper. I'm going to the grocery store. Half the shelves are empty. With that infusion of cash, it might help people pay their bills, but it's not going to increase the supply, is what you're saying.
That's exactly right. It's always about real resources. The government neither has nor doesn't have dollars. It creates them, like I've said. So the issue of affordability should never be spoken of again. We should just literally let's drop the facade. It should be clear as day now.
Well, I want to explain it more for people that might not have seen you yet. So like Ben Bernanke, for example, former Fed chair, went on 60 Minutes and he basically said infamously, well, no, we just moved the decimal through a machine to create money.
Exactly. And that is exactly how it works in a fiat currency environment. And that's what we've been in forever, well, since 72 anyway. And so I guess for folks that maybe haven't heard this, I'll do it real brief because I want to talk specifically about the COVID-19 scenario that was playing out in front of us. You know, the United States government is on a sovereign, meaning it's its own, free floating, meaning it's not pegged to gold, it's not pegged to oil, it's not pegged to anything. Fiat, meaning by decree, meaning the government creates it at will, fiat currency. Okay. And so this currency is what our US dollar is, and it's based on the ability to tax in it. Our ability to levy a tax in it is the obligation payable only in that dollar, which is what keeps it going, which is why it won't lose its value, because you can't pay your taxes in Bitcoins and you can't pay your taxes in anything else. It has to be US dollars. And that's the system. That's why it works the way it works. So this basic obligation is what drives all economic activity. It's what creates buyers and sellers. It's what creates markets. It's literally why you see all these companies going belly up and they're looking for a federal infusion of money, because they don't have money without the federal government pumping it in constantly. And what happens is, people don't realize, is these federal contracts and stuff are how money creation gets pumped into the economy. That's literally how they keep the economy going. We're looking at a very different scenario here. We're asking our government to do what it should have done years ago, instead of just pumping it into the top and letting it trickle down, which is Reaganomics. They pump it in the bottom and let us decide where to spend our money. But the problem is not just the money. If we spend those direct payments to these companies, but it's for services for you and I, Medicare for all, free college, all these things, it's not like it doesn't get paid for. It still gets paid. It's just that you don't have to worry about whether the cost goes up or down. The government makes those payments, period. It's invisible to you. That's the flaw in the universal basic income, right? The universal basic income, here's $1,000. Well, what if the prices go up? You're on the hook. Doesn't matter. Now you got to go drive for Uber. Now you got to go wait tables. Now you got to do some gig economy bullshit. And that's not secure. That's not making America great even remotely.
Because
So
it's also like, the rule of supply and demand. If people get more money, there's more demand then, so prices will go up.
Well, it could, right? So, Stephanie Kelton, who is Bernie Sanders' chief economic advisor, she has written a paper. You can find it in the LA Times. It's a few years back, basically saying that if Congress breeds enough ponies, it can give every American a pony. It's kind of a play on words, but the idea here is that as long as there's enough real resources, we can do anything we want. The issue is never the issue of affordability. We create money every single time we spend, not sometimes, every single time. Same with Social Security. So this is really important, especially in this COVID-19 moment here, because what has happened is all the economic activity has come to a screeching halt. You're not able to pay your bills. A lot of people are laid off. I mean, tons and tons of people are laid off. And so $1,000 a month is not going to cover what they missed from their paycheck. However, if we had a federal job guarantee, which is something that could be implemented right here, right now, serving the local community, they could literally provide them a living wage, not just a stipend of $1,000, a living wage. And that work could be redefined to serving the local community, whatever that means. So this is one of the big deals, right? This is about restructuring society. This is about being prepared for a COVID-19 or worse. As climate change becomes more and more visible to us, and ice caps start melting and new viruses come out of the substrate and out of the permafrost and so forth, as tides rise and different algae grow and all sorts of different things happen to our atmosphere that we're not prepared for. This is what we have to be. We have to prepare before they happen, not, oh shit. And so now we're in an oh shit moment. And a lot of people, and I'm going to tell you right now, I really have been struggling with this. I'm extraordinarily bitter at many people within our own movement and many people outside of our movement that have rejected this thinking, that have not understood, that have literally said, oh, it's bullshit, it's cult, it's whatever. They have literally cost lives, thousands, if not millions of lives in the grand scheme of things. And it's time that we looked inward and said, wait a minute, hold on. What part did I play in this? Because we got to get everyone. This is where the movement has to kick in. We are not going to see the kind of change that we need unless we all get behind this. Warren Mosler came out. Warren Mosler is one of the granddaddies of MMT. And he just said, unless we deficit spend to the tune of 10% of GDP, now that's a huge amount of money. Unless we get over 10%, he says, I don't see any way of getting out of this becoming a massive depression, a global depression. Forget a recession, a global depression where people are literally dying. I mean, this is where, what about the gold standard, all the other nonsense, a petrodollar. Dude, guys, for real, it's time to put your Ron Paul over here and get into the real, because this is no joke now. People are literally dying. Now you can't hide from it anymore. Now you can't be edgy and cool. Now you got to get on board and understand that if the federal government doesn't make direct payments to people to keep the primer going, at least through this period of time while we get through the initial burst of this disease, and unless we don't get to a point where we stop the bleeding from foreclosures, oh my God, I mean, the cataclysmic events that we saw in 2007, 2008 during the last crisis, they're going to pale in comparison to what the screeching halt did now. And I can't tell you how frustrating that is to have been saying this for 5 years, 10 years really, but 5 years within this Bernie Sanders movement, being at Real Progressive, telling folks and them saying, I don't like his attitude, I don't like his tone, I don't like the way he said that, whatever. Here we are. Now it's real. And how many have to die for you to feel good about doing the right thing? And that's where I'm at, man.
I want to crystallize it for people who are programmed to be like, but what about the debt you would accumulate from all of this? Because obviously people watching are programmed to think, well, everything you're talking about is super expensive and it's going to add whatever we're at now, 21 trillion, whatever it is, debt-wise. You're talking of adding, I mean, this is how Nancy Pelosi thinks and speaks. Yep. Because obviously the politicians now are throwing that idea out the window. Why is it that the debt thing is not real? It's not a real thing, as Kelton and you have explained. So if the government has to pump in $3 to $5 trillion right now, why does debt not matter in that picture?
I don't know if this shows up or not. It's probably backwards.
No, it shows up.
But assets and liabilities. The government spends money into the economy. Let's say it's $1. There's another one on the other side of the ledger, $1, right? All the debt is a sum total of every untaxed dollar in existence today. That's it, period. That's it. So $1 in spending equals $1 in tax credit. When that dollar comes back home, it closes out, it's done. So we hear about this debt, but it's really public sector deficits are private sector surpluses. It's the mirror image of that balance sheet. And we can't get past that for whatever. This is basic shit. I mean, you learn this in high school. This isn't like, got to get the Pythagorean theorem out. This is basic double entry accounting. The government, because it creates that dollar, there's the one. When it comes back, they zero out. So if you got rid of the debt, you would literally wipe out all the money in existence. That's literally what the debt is. And so it's this play on words because they're trying to, what is the word? Train you into austerity. The rich know it. That's why they got billions of dollars. That's why they're billionaires. They understand this. They know that as long as we are willing to settle for crumbs, that they can have this stratification that allows them to lead an entirely different lifestyle and keeps us in this, controlled environment where we are, just grateful. Oh, thank you, sir, for taking 10% off my coffee. I mean, we're at a point now where we got to get rid of the shackles of that. And see, the real tough thing is that many people in our movement have been tainted by that whole Rothschild shit and all the other nonsense about, but the central banks, they don't understand. All the central banks are literally is a scorekeeper. You go to a baseball game. Where did runs come from in the baseball game? Did they come from the Rothschilds or did they come from a freaking keystroke on the board? That's where dollars come from. Where do you get your goals in a hockey game? From the freaking scoreboard? What did they get? Dig up a goal from a mountainside and get a gold thing for a score? It's the same exact thing. All a dollar is a score. And they don't have to dig it up. That's the point of it being free floating and not pegged to gold or not pegged to oil. And we've been off of that for so long. that we've got to start thinking differently, or we're going to be screwed. And we are. This is the point. We are screwed right now. Right now, it's the devastation from just the disease is nothing compared to the devastation of a depression when we already were banjo tight. And boy, oh boy, it's coming.
I want to ask you, because this stood out to me during the last debate, and frankly, I think Bernie just whiffed and missed an opportunity. But when Joe Biden, it's more visual. It doesn't really matter what he says. Most Americans are just like, wow, he looks confident. That, whatever. He looks like a leader. But when he said, this is an emergency, how to pay for it? You don't pay for it. If you have to get tested for coronavirus or you need treatment, it's covered. That's it. National emergency. I think Bernie's response was fairly feeble. I think he tried to make the point I'm about to make, but not very dramatically. But to me, that shows that everything Biden and the neoliberals before have been saying about how you're going to pay for it is complete bullshit. Because, well, it seems like basically if the government prioritizes something as an emergency, they can figure out how to pay for it, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Basically, because Joe Biden classifies the coronavirus as an emergency, thus let's waive off people paying for it, which it is, by the way. I agree with him. But he doesn't prioritize people rationing insulin as an emergency, right? Yeah. We have to figure out how to pay for that, but for the coronavirus, we don't. And I don't think Bernie made that point. And I'd like to ask you, because to me, he just gave the game away. We could pay for it. We just choose, because our donors won't allow us, to make you have to pay for it.
So what is difficult for me is that I come in ready to slug somebody. I mean, I'm my fist is ready to slam him right in the throat every time I hear somebody say these things. And when I'm watching Bernie do that, I'm like banging on the freaking wall, screaming in my house, furious, because he whiffed. He did whiff. And I did a video not too long after when Anderson Cooper had asked him this stuff, and he went, well, it's going to be pretty expensive. I'm like, hey, who gives a shit? Expensive to who? I mean, that's like household budget bullshit. Nobody cares about that, right? You need to come out cold. And the fact is that paying for it, affording any of this stuff is not a thing. It's not a thing. There's infinite dollars. For God's sake, Greenspan of all people told Paul Ryan, when Paul Ryan was trying to privatize Social Security, he's like, dude, there's nothing preventing us from creating as many dollars as we want. The question is, and this goes back to everything I said about shelves being bare, can we create an economy where the real resources are available for purchase? If they're not, then you're going to have inflationary issues. This is a demand pull type thing. And if we have an economy where we have real production and we have the ability to achieve these things, then we should do it. But anyway, the point that you make is absolutely spot on. Biden and gang try to make this other, well, under these conditions, we can do it. But the fact is that we do it with war all the time. You and I talked about the $750 billion that they put out there with a fart. Is done. There it goes, right? Not a single tax was raised for that. In fact, they reduced taxes. Okay. And this is where we get handcuffed because, again, you see all the people, well, the Rothschilds, and what about the national debt in China? We are borrowing money from China. How in the hell do we borrow U.S. dollars from China? Come on. I mean, it's just some of the things we say are so easily debunked if we took two steps back and said, why in the world would China have all of our U.S. dollars and we can't? It's just ridiculous. So Biden nails it because Biden takes we've got to be very serious about this moment here. And Bernie's like, and it really broke my heart. It devastated me because that was the time where I was waiting for Bernie to go from the free throw line, Jordan tongue out, slam dunk that thing. And he whiffed. He got rim shot all the way. Mm-hmm. So, my take on this is for everybody is that we've had to do for Bernie what Bernie can't do for himself. Because let's be fair, every time Bernie wags his finger, there's some Angie's Lister out there going, oh, Bernie's a mean guy. Every time he goes, let me be honest, they're like, oh my God, he's shouting at me. Every time he does anything, they're like, oh, Bernie this, Bernie that. Bernie can't win. And so if Bernie came out and said these things, they would call him a kook. Look how many people think I'm a kook. I'm good with it. I know exactly what I'm talking about down to the nth degree, and I'm good with it. But there's a lot of people out there that don't know this stuff. They hung out in too many Ron Paul circles, and now they're stuck in this gold bug standard thinking. And it's a shame because it's really crippling us. And Bernie Sanders had to play to people like that. That's the balancing act, right? Goes out there and says we can do anything we want. People are like, oh, he's a loony lefty, a crazy Bernie, right?
Right.
It's.
I also want to turn to Andrew Yang, because you and I have spoken about his proposals, and it's like trending now, like, oh, Yang's been vindicated. But the way I see it, I don't think Yang's been vindicated. What his whole message was $1,000 a month on top of what, your salary or whatever you're already making, while he was simultaneously saying Armageddon's coming and everybody's going to lose their jobs.
That's right.
So if there's a jobless economy, according to Yang, which is kind of true, it is coming. I don't agree with the defeatist attitude that we can't do anything about it, but that's a different topic. So basically, if it's a jobless economy, $1,000 a month, I mean, it's better than nothing, but that's not an actual sustainable thing to pay your bills, feed your children. $1,000 a month in New York City is like enough for almond milk. So my point is, now, even getting $1,000 a month, unless your car payment is frozen, your rent is frozen, your mortgage is frozen, your student loans are frozen, $1,000 a month, I mean, might let you survive. But my point is, like, UBI to me, unless it's on top of other things, not in place of other things, is a Band-Aid to a gunshot wound.
It's worse than that. Let me. So in this particular case,
and I don't want to upset the Yang gang. I know they're very triggered, but I'm not attacking Yang, because I know people that are for universal basic income that are coming from a genuine place, but there's holes in it.
Yeah. So there's a guy that came out there, right winger, screaming and excited about the UBI coming, because he's like, now we can finally get rid of this damn FDR communist bullshit, and we can just give them their $1,000. And again, I think I've stated it so empirically that it's almost beyond refutation. If you don't have a price anchor, some sort of an anchor, whether it be an anti-gouging law or whether it be literally price setting, that $1,000 means nothing. It really doesn't. It doesn't guarantee you anything. And more importantly, at this point in time, if you don't have the production to back it, you don't have anything. What you need is, I need healthcare. I need the tests. I need the vaccines. I need medicine. I need whatever. I don't need cash. I need the medicine. I need the medicine that the cash, because if that medicine suddenly goes up from some Shrekley guy that goes ahead and drives up to $1,500 a shot, my $1,000 doesn't even get me one shot, right? So the insanity of sending people that are already desperate and broke out there to forage in the free market to find solutions is the most disgusting right-wing bullshit I've ever seen in my life. Provide people the actual services they need and let the government absorb any cost overruns. And don't worry about how much it costs, because it doesn't matter. I think that the universal basic income as a tool to get us through this thing is not really universal basic income at all. We are talking about an emergency cash infusion to keep the priming of the pump going. But at some point in time, that production has to match up with the outpour. It's not because of some sort of, you want us to work or something like that. There has to be production. And nobody can prove, and I can assure you they can't, that automation is keeping up with production. It's bullshit. It's a lie. And it's so obvious that it's a lie that we should almost be ashamed that we even parroted at this point. We're so far away from that. There's so much work that needs to be done right here, right now, that automation cannot touch. And we're seeing the effects of that kind of small-minded thinking as we speak right here, right now. I mean, we are literally living in a dystopian world right now because people have filled the gray matter in their brain with a bunch of myths and legends, and now we're stuck dealing with the fallout. Reality and bullshit mythology, they don't line up right now. Reality is we need food, we need shelter, we need actual medicine, we need vaccines, we need all those things, and we need relief from horrible debt. And none of that's going to come. I mean, they could literally write that debt off, Jordan. Why do I want $1,000 to figure? I want them to get rid of the student debt. I want them to put a halt to mortgage payments during this crisis. I mean, we keep thinking small instead of going for the freaking home run ball when it's right there for us. I don't get that thinking at all. Doesn't make sense to me.
I want to end with something that you touched on, but I think is really important. So Bernie's plan for the climate crisis is $16 trillion, right? By far the largest investment of any politician. When the climate crisis becomes irreversible, which it already really is, but when you start having climate refugees flooding this country, when you have people from the West Coast flooding to the Midwest, this and that, there's not going to be any social distancing, right?
Nope.
You're not going to be able to quarantine if your community is flooding. Doesn't matter if you lock your door. So I'm not minimizing what we're going through now, but the climate crisis, which I call the inferno, really.
Yeah.
I think climate crisis isn't really. I think wording is important.
Sure.
It's like gentrification. Nobody really knows what that is. Economic terrorism, they get it. So
Yep.
I think climate crisis, if the government doesn't act now, and by the way, Joe Biden is not going to do
Nope.
what is needed. I mean, Trump is way worse on the environment than anybody we've seen, but it's not like a Democratic president that's neoliberal is going to do what needs to be done. The Paris Climate Accords is not enough. But the immediate steps that need to happen now, once the climate crisis happens, all these things go out the window. I mean, there's not much you could do economically then to whether it's modern monetary theory or anything. I mean, you can't MMT your way out of Mother Earth roaring. So why is it so important now to do the things you're saying to stave that off?
I mean, there you go, man. We're already paying for this stuff one way or the other. You see what I'm saying? Pay me now, pay me later. Either way, you're paying. You want to pay with your life or you want to pay with freaking fiat bucks. I mean, get over it, man. This is not a matter of what you prefer, what you're like, you know. This is how it is. So use it. Use it for us so we can survive. I mean, I look upstairs at my son and I think to myself, I mean, I'm telling you right now, Jordan, it's hard for me to even talk to family right now because I've got conservative family members and I'm like, you did this. You did this. You guys who think that we got to reduce the debt, reduce the deficit, you did this. You built this son of a bitch. You better fix it. Because it's not me. It's not me that has to. I get it. I know what has to happen, but you won't listen. It's like I'm just like that Peanuts guy. Wah, 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 wah. You don't hear it. But now it's time you better hear it, or you better find a voice that's saying the same thing in a way that your ears hear it. Because it's that serious and we got to move and we got to move now. You're right. There's going to be climate refugees. There's going to be, imagine in areas where there's Hindus and Muslims and all of a sudden people are having to get away from the coasts as tsunamis are coming. And all of a sudden you're blending in these things in tight quarters. You got the friggin' religious wars going on. You've got the entire bedlam of just pure malaria and all the other stuff that comes with the tsunamis, the after effects, all the health crises, you name it. This is not hard to see, folks. I mean, it's happening in Florida. It's happening all over the place. I mean, you have it in New Orleans. I mean, Jordan, you're famous for talking about Flint, Michigan. We got this right now. I mean, these are real things that we could fix right now that would save us a lot of headaches later when the health crisis really gets bad. It's got to be done now. It's got to be done yesterday. I don't even know if we have time to do it now, but we better try. You know, and, that's my take.
Lightning round real quick in the next, let's say 30 days, because as we're talking, New York Governor Cuomo just basically announced what seems to be like a stay in shelter in place order. He announced, I am announcing Matilda's Law to protect New Yorkers age 70 and over and those with compromised immune systems. Remain indoors, pre-screen visitors by taking temperature. Visitors should wear masks, stay 6 feet away from others. Sounds like a shelter in order, but I'll have to get more info. In the next 30 days, what are the immediate steps that need to be taken from the government?
Immediately needs to be spending money on R&D. Immediately get that vaccine created. Immediately give families. I would go as far as saying $2,000 every other week or something like that, like $4,000 a month to families. I mean, stop mortgage payments immediately. Stop student loan debts immediately. Make direct payments to those groups. If it's going to create economic activity, that's fine. But the fact of the matter is that we need to make sure people have the goods and services they need in a safe and secure way, especially if we're quarantining folks. We need to be able to make sure that we have civilian corps getting resources out to families so that they're not spreading the disease, so to speak. And this needs to happen yesterday. It needs to happen right now. We need to be able to have right now a good communication network that allows people to know where to get health care, where to get tested, what to do, and whatever scenario comes up. And we don't have that right now. We don't have anything like that, and it needs to happen yesterday. Schumer, you need to get your ass in gear and freaking pass an extremely robust spending bill so families have the ability to take care of themselves. Make medical care immediately free right now. Doesn't matter. Pass Medicare for all right now as an emergency measure immediately right now. And that's the best we can do. I mean, right now we've screwed the pooch. That's it.
Where can people find your work?
You can find me on my podcast, which is www.macrocheese.com. You can find me at Real Progressives on Facebook and Twitter. And I am AIM, or Austerity is Murder, for my own Twitter handle.
And as Steve knows, you gotta set your notifications.
Yes,
YouTube ain't gonna notify you.
Real Progress in Action, by the way, is our primary YouTube channel. So, folks, please come find me at Real Progress in Action and hit that subscribe button, and we'll keep pumping out information about how to survive this crisis.
Cool. Thanks, Steve. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, buddy.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.